They called it the human contagion. In the sterile, data-driven halls of the Galactic Consortium, this was the official designation for our species. It wasn't a term of malice. It was a term of clinical diagnosis. To the ancient, genetically perfected races of the galaxy, humanity was not a rival or a threat. We were a biological error, a cosmic stain. Our DNA, a chaotic storm of mutation and adaptation, was seen as the ultimate weakness. A flaw so profound, it was a miracle we had even achieved combustion, let alone star travel. They watched us from afar, cataloging our short, violent lives, our susceptibility to disease, our emotional instability, and they logged it all as evidence of our inferiority. A fleeting, failed experiment of the universe. And in the face of this galactic consensus, in the shadow of fleets that could crack planets like eggshells, humanity sent a single man to make a deal. His name was Ambassador Kaelen Vance. He was not a warrior, he was not a scientist, he was a historian, and he was given an impossible task: secure humanity's future from beings who saw us as little more than a genetic plague. He had no technology to offer them, no resources they couldn't simply take. He had nothing. Nothing except a deep, unshakable understanding of what the galaxy had fatally misdiagnosed. He understood the true nature of the human contagion, and he was about to make the most audacious, the most insane, the most brilliant trade in cosmic history. He was about to trade Earth's greatest perceived weakness for a fleet that would guarantee our survival. This is the story of that trade. This is the story of the Ambassador's Gambit. He traded Earth's weakest asset for a fleet. And it is a story that holds a brutal, powerful truth about where your own true strength is hiding. Let's set the stage. The year is 2342. Humanity has just breached the interstellar veil. We followed the siren song of strange signals to the galactic center, only to find the party was already in full swing, and we weren't on the guest list. The Galactic Consortium was less a federation and more of a corporate entity run by a board of ancient, post-biological species. The most dominant among them were the Vex. Imagine a being sculpted from polished obsidian, impossibly tall and slender, with limbs that moved with an unnatural, fluid grace. The Vex had conquered evolution itself. Millennia ago, they had purged their genome of all randomness. They had eliminated disease, aging, and mutation. Their DNA was a perfect, stable, crystal lattice. Every Vex was born an exact, optimized copy of the one before. They had achieved what they called genetic supremacy. There were no surprises, no deviations, no unexpected outcomes. Their society was a model of cold, perfect efficiency, and they viewed the rest of the universe through this lens. When they encountered humanity, their sophisticated sensors recoiled. Our DNA was, to them, an abomination. It was a tangled, messy, chaotic knot of code. It was constantly changing, adapting, making mistakes. We carried dormant viral code, genetic predispositions to hundreds of illnesses, and a terrifyingly short biological clock. Our emotions, driven by this chaotic biology, were violent and unpredictable. They saw our art as a symptom of psychosis, our ambition as a sign of unchecked ego, our love as a temporary chemical imbalance. We were, in their official taxonomy, a Tier 7 aberrant species, the lowest possible classification. We were a biological dead end, and it was only a matter of time before the consortium voted to either quarantine us on our home world indefinitely, or simply sterilize the system as a cosmic cleanup measure. This was the crisis that fell upon the shoulders of Ambassador Kaelen Vance. He wasn't a product of military academies or scientific think tanks. He was a student of human history. He had spent his life studying the fall of Rome, the resilience of the human spirit during the Black Death, the ingenuity born from the world wars. He understood that humanity's entire story was one of overcoming impossible odds not through perfection, but through the very chaos the Vex despised. He saw our flaws not as bugs, but as features. His mandate from the terrified Earth government was simple: buy us time. Beg, plead, offer anything. Surrender our technology, cede our resource-rich asteroid belts. Do whatever it takes to avoid the sterilizing gaze of the Vex. Vance arrived at the Consortium Nexus, a moon-sized station of black crystal and cold light, a lone representative of a species on cosmic death row. The Vex Primarch, a being named Xyler, granted him an audience. It was not a negotiation. It was a formality before sentencing. Xyler's voice was not sound, but a direct telepathic transmission, cold and sharp as glass. Your species is a biological anomaly, human Vance. Your genetic code is a cascade of errors. It is unstable, volatile. You are a footnote in the Galactic Codex, destined for extinction. State your final plea so we may close this chapter. Vance stood in the cavernous chamber, dwarfed by the Vex hierarchs. He felt the weight of 7 billion souls on his back. He knew what they expected. They expected him to beg, to offer trinkets, to grovel. He did none of those things. He looked at the perfect, unchanging face of the Primarch, and he initiated his gambit. "Primarch Xyler," Vance said, his voice calm and steady. "You are correct. Our biology is chaotic. Our evolution is a storm of constant, unpredictable change. We are fragile, short-lived, and prone to error. By every metric you value, stability, purity, longevity, we are an abject failure. You see it as our greatest weakness." He paused, letting the silence hang in the cold air. "I am here to offer you that weakness, all of it." The Vex hierarchs stirred. A ripple of confusion passed through their silent communion. Xyler's mental voice sharpened. "Explain." "You are a species that has conquered change," Vance continued, his strategy unfolding word by word. "You have achieved a perfect, static existence, but you are also a species of scientists. You study the universe to understand its principles, to protect yourselves from its threats. Our chaotic DNA, it is the ultimate cosmic threat, is it not? A living, breathing example of the very randomness you have purged. It is a contagion of change." He leaned forward slightly, his eyes locked on Xyler. "You want to understand it, to dissect it, to build defenses against any other chaotic species you might encounter. You want to study the disease to reinforce your own immunity. I am not offering you technology you could reverse engineer in a day. I am not offering you resources you could harvest from any dead rock. I am offering you the ultimate biological puzzle, the source code of chaos itself. A complete, unredacted, deep-access copy of the entire Human Genome Project, with live, continuous data streams from our population." The chamber was utterly still. The Vex were processing the audacity of the offer. They were being offered the blueprint to their enemy's soul, framed as a scientific curiosity. "And what do you ask in return for this specimen?" Xyler's thought voice was laced with a mixture of contempt and intrigue. This was the moment, the knife's edge. Vance stated his price, a price so disproportionate, so ludicrous, it was designed to appeal directly to their arrogance. "In exchange for the blueprint of our greatest weakness," Vance said, "we ask for a fleet, your last generation of decommissioned warships, the ones currently rusting in the graveyard of Ymir. To you, they are obsolete relics. To us, they are a guarantee that we will have the time and security to continue being human, to continue generating the very chaotic data you wish to study." He had done it. He had offered them the disease and asked for the cure in return. He wasn't selling a strength. He was selling their perception of his weakness. The entire gambit rested on one fatal assumption he knew the Vex would make: that their own genetic perfection was absolute and unassailable, that they could study the fire of human chaos without ever getting burned. It was the biggest mistake a galactic empire could ever make. The Vex debated for less than a standard galactic cycle. The logic to their rigid minds was flawless. The human's proposal was an admission of his own species' worthlessness. He was trading his very essence for scrap metal. The data from a Tier 7 aberrant species was a biological curiosity, nothing more. A fascinating case study in cosmic failure. The warships were meaningless, scheduled for atomic disassembly anyway. Granting them to the humans was a trivial cost, a gesture of ironic magnanimity. It would allow their little experiment to continue, providing more data while also demonstrating the consortium's ultimate power. The deal was struck. The data streams began flowing from Earth to the Vex homeworld, and the first of the old, hulking warships, ships still more powerful than anything humanity could dream of building, began their slow journey to Earth's solar system. Humanity celebrated. They thought Kaelen Vance was a genius diplomat who had hoodwinked the mighty Vex. They had no idea that the real Gambit had only just begun. Vance hadn't just bought time, he had planted a seed. On the Vex homeworld of Vexia, a new division was created, the Office of Aberrant Genetics. The greatest biological minds of the Vex race were assigned to study the human genome. At first, it was a source of academic ridicule. They marveled at its inelegance. Look, one would transmit to another, a dormant retrovirus here, a useless junk DNA sequence there. Their telomeres shorten with every replication. It's pathetic. They treated it like a child's messy finger painting. But one scientist, a Vex named Lyra, became obsessed. Her task was to map the pathways of human adaptation. She watched, through the data streams, how our immune systems responded to new pathogens, rewriting their own code in a matter of days. She studied the neural plasticity of the human brain, its ability to learn, to create, to dream up things that had never existed. She saw data on human resilience, individuals who survived catastrophic injuries, who overcame psychological trauma, who pushed their bodies to limits that their genetic code said were impossible. The Vex had no concept for this. Their bodies were perfect, but if a Vex was damaged beyond its narrow operational parameters, it simply ceased to function. They did not heal in the human sense, they were repaired. They did not learn in the human sense, they downloaded information. The idea of overcoming was alien to them. Lyra started with a simple question. Why was the human genome so messy? All her Vex education told her that efficiency and stability were the goals of life. Yet here was a species that thrived on inefficiency. That used its flaws as a springboard. She started running simulations. She introduced a hypothetical cosmic plague into her models, one that could bypass the Vex's perfect but uniform immune defenses. In every simulation, the Vex went extinct. 100% of the time. Their perfect uniformity was a single point of failure. Then she ran the same simulation with the human genome. The plague ravaged the model population. 99% died. But 1% had a random, chaotic mutation that gave them a slight resistance. They survived. They reproduced. And within a few generations, the entire model population was immune. Chaos, she realized, was not a flaw. It was a survival strategy. Messy, brutal, inefficient, but it worked. This realization was heretical. It was like a priest discovering proof that God did not exist. She tried to share her findings. She wrote a paper titled, "The Strategic Advantages of Stochastic Genetic Propagation." Her superiors reviewed it and dismissed it as a logical fallacy. "The specimen has contaminated your logic circuits, Lyra," was the official response. She was reassigned. But it was too late. The seed was planted. The idea, the data was available to thousands of other Vex scientists. Others began to see what Lyra had seen. They didn't see weakness anymore. They saw potential. They saw a terrifying, exhilarating power in the human code, the the power of becoming. The Vex had been a finished product for eons. They were perfect, yes, but they were also done. The humans were never done. They were always changing, always adapting, always in a state of becoming something new. A philosophical schism began to form. A faction of Vex, later called the Evolvers, began to argue that the Vex had made a grave error. That in purging their own chaos, they had cut themselves off from the very engine of life. They argued that true genetic superiority wasn't a static state of perfection, but a dynamic state of infinite adaptability. This idea was more dangerous to the Vex than any warship. Their entire society, their identity, their power, was built on the bedrock of genetic stability. The Evolvers' philosophy suggested that their perfection was actually a prison, a beautiful, ornate, gilded cage. The ruling Primarchs saw this for what it was, an existential threat. They tried to suppress the new thinking. They censored the data streams from Earth, but you cannot unring a bell, you cannot erase an idea. The debate turned from philosophical to political. The Evolvers began to secretly experiment. They used the human genetic data not as a warning, but as a blueprint. They started trying to reintroduce controlled chaos into their own genome, seeking to reactivate the evolutionary pathways they had silenced so long ago. This was the ultimate blasphemy. Within a single generation, the monolithic, unchanging Vex Empire was fractured. A quiet, cold civil war erupted, fought not in space battles, but in laboratories and data networks. The rigid society of the Vex could not handle dissent. It could not handle a new idea. It cracked under the strain. Their focus turned inward, consumed by the ideological war that Ambassador Vance had so cleverly ignited. They forgot about the little Tier 7 aberrant species on the fringe of the galaxy. And humanity, safe behind the shield of their newly acquired fleet, watched. They used the time Vance had bought them to reverse-engineer the alien technology, to build their own fleets, to expand, to grow. They had been given a fighting chance, not because they had proven their strength, but because their ambassador had understood the profound, strategic power hidden within their perceived weakness. This story, the story of the ambassador's Gambit, is not just a piece of science fiction lore. It is a mirror reflecting a set of brutal truths about power, perception, and potential. It is a lesson that you must burn into your mind if you are to navigate the conflicts of your own life. Let's break down the laws of power that Kaelen Vance weaponized. The first brutal truth is this: your greatest perceived weakness is the source of your most unique power. Humanity was seen as weak because our DNA was chaotic. We were emotional, we were short-lived, we were fragile. The Vex and even many humans saw these as liabilities, but Vance saw the truth. Our chaotic DNA was the engine of our adaptability, our emotions, the fuel for our art, our courage, our ingenuity. Our short lifespans forced us to be ambitious, to build legacies, to create things that would outlast us. Our fragility taught us resilience. Look at your own life. What have you been told is your weakness? Are you too sensitive, too emotional? Perhaps that sensitivity allows you to connect with people on a level that colder, more detached individuals never can. Perhaps it's the source of your creativity. Are you restless, impatient? Perhaps that restlessness is the engine of your ambition, the reason you can't stand mediocrity and are always pushing to build, to create, to improve. Are you an outsider? Do you not fit in? That outsider perspective allows you to see the flaws in the system, to spot opportunities that the insiders, blinded by conformity, will always miss. The Vex's strength, their genetic stability, was also the source of their downfall. It made them rigid, arrogant, and incapable of change. Their perfection was a monolith that could not bend, and so it shattered. Your perceived flaws give you flexibility. They are the cracks in your armor that let the light in. Stop trying to fix your fundamental nature. Stop apologizing for the things that make you different. Instead, do what Vance did. Ask yourself, How can I weaponize this? How can I turn this perceived weakness into a strategic advantage that no one else possesses? Your sensitivity can become empathy that builds unbreakable loyalty. Your restlessness can become the drive that builds an empire. Your outsider status can become the vision that revolutionizes an industry. Own your chaos. It is your greatest asset. The second brutal truth: the map is not the territory. How others define you is their limitation, not yours. The Galactic Consortium, with all its data and wisdom, slapped a label on humanity. Tier 7 aberrant species. They created a map, a neat little box to put us in. They defined us as weak, chaotic, and insignificant, and they treated us according to that map. They dismissed us. They underestimated us, and that was their fatal error. Their definition of us was a reflection of their own values, their own fears, their own rigid worldview. It had nothing to do with our actual potential. People will do this to you your entire life. They will label you. They will put you in a box. He's not a leader. She's too aggressive. He's not smart enough. She's just not cut out for this. They create a map of who you are, and that map is designed to keep them comfortable and you manageable. They need to define you to control you. The moment you accept their definition, you have lost. You have chosen to live within the tiny borders of their map, instead of exploring the vast, uncharted territory of your own potential. Kaelen Vance never accepted their definition. He heard Tier 7 aberrant species and thought, good, they won't see us coming. He used their definition, their underestimation, against them. It was the cloak under which he planned his entire gambit. You must do the same. When someone labels you, do not argue, do not get defensive. Simply observe. Understand that their label is a piece of strategic information. It tells you exactly how they underestimate you. It reveals their blind spots. Let them cling to their flawed map of you. It gives you the freedom to move, to prepare, to act in ways they will never anticipate. Their definition of you is their prison, not yours. Your potential is the territory, vast and unknown. Their labels are just graffiti on the wall. Ignore it and keep moving. The third brutal truth: true strength is not stability, but the capacity to adapt to chaos. The Vex worshipped stability. They had created a perfect, unchanging society. They saw this as the pinnacle of existence. But when a truly new variable was introduced, the idea of evolution contained within the human genome, their entire system collapsed. They had no immune response to change. Their strength was brittle like glass. It could withstand immense pressure, but when it finally met a force it was not designed for, it shattered into a million pieces. Humanity, on the other hand, was born in chaos. Our entire history is a story of adapting to changing climates, new diseases, societal collapse, and technological disruption. We don't just survive chaos, we thrive in it. It forces us to be creative, to be resilient, to evolve. Our strength is not like glass, it's like water. It can be soft and yielding, or it can be a tsunami that carves canyons through stone. It adapts its shape to the container, to the challenge. Look at the world around you. It is not getting more stable. It is becoming more chaotic, more unpredictable. Technology, politics, the economy, they are all accelerating. The people who are clinging to the old ways, the ones who are seeking perfect stability and a predictable career path, are the new Vex. They are building their lives out of glass, and they will be shattered by the first major storm. You must become a master of adaptation. You must learn to love chaos. You must train yourself to see disruption not as a threat, but as an opportunity. When your industry is disrupted, you must be the first one to learn the new skills. When your life is thrown into turmoil, you must be the one who finds the hidden advantage in the new situation. Stop seeking a safe harbor. There are no safe harbors. There is only the open sea. True strength is not in building thicker walls. It's in learning how to build a better ship and becoming a master navigator of the storm. Embrace the mindset of the human genome. Constantly learn, constantly adapt, constantly evolve. Because the chaos is coming. You can either be broken by it or you can be forged in its fire. And the final, most crucial truth from the ambassador's gambit. The greatest rewards are reserved for those willing to make the greatest gambles. Kaelen Vance's plan was insane. By any rational metric, it was an act of treason. He was giving the enemy the very blueprint of his species. He was betting the future of humanity on a psychological theory about his opponent's arrogance. If he was wrong, he would have armed them with the knowledge to create a bioweapon that could eradicate humanity in an instant. The risk was absolute, but the reward was equally absolute: survival and a future. We are taught to avoid risk. We are taught to play it safe, to take the steady job, the secure path, the predictable route. We are taught to fear failure more than we desire success. This conditioning creates a life of quiet desperation, a life spent in the shallow end of the pool, never knowing the thrill of the deep ocean. Every single great achievement in human history, from crossing the ocean to walking on the moon to building the company you work for, was the result of a calculated, terrifying gamble. Someone, somewhere, had to risk their reputation, their fortune, their very life on an idea that everyone else thought was crazy. You are standing at your own negotiation table right now. On one side is the life you have. On the other is the life you could have. To get from one to the other, you have to make a trade. You have to place a bet. You have to make a gambit. Maybe your gambit is quitting that safe job to start your own business. Maybe it's moving to a new city where you know no one. Maybe it's finally having that brutally honest conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's investing in yourself, betting that you can become more than you are today. These gambles are terrifying. You might fail. The Vex might have just taken the genetic code and vaporized Earth anyway. But Vance understood that inaction was also a choice, and it was a choice that guaranteed extinction. Your safe path is not safe. It is a slow, guaranteed decay into mediocrity and regret. The real risk is not in making the gambit. The real risk is in never making it at all. So look at your life. Identify your Vex, the overwhelming force of convention, fear, or self-doubt that keeps you in your place. Understand their arrogance and their blind spots. Then find your weakest asset, that part of you that you've been told to hide, that you've been ashamed of, and craft your gambit. Figure out how to trade that perceived weakness for the fleet that will carry you to your future. It will be the scariest thing you ever do, and it will be the only thing that truly sets you free. Ambassador Kaelen Vance didn't save humanity with a phaser or a starship. He saved it with an idea. He understood that the greatest battles are not fought with weapons, but with perception. He knew that the most powerful force in the universe is not a stable atom, but a disruptive thought. He looked at what the entire galaxy called a flaw, and he saw a spark. The spark within. The chaotic, unpredictable, and unstoppable fire of human potential. That same spark is inside you. It is hidden in your flaws. It is camouflaged by your fears. It is buried under the labels that others have placed upon you. The lesson of the ambassador's gambit is to stop running from it. Stop trying to extinguish it. Your job is to find it, to nurture it, and to unleash it upon a world that is not ready for what you are about to become. Make your gambit. The fleet is waiting.